into lions or elephant when I'm out on foot? Joshua, to be very honest with you, and I know a lot of people don't believe me, especially if they're not aware of the behavior of animals on foot, I would way rather run into lions than elephant. Now, the reason I say that is because lions are a lot easier to judge in terms of their behavior. They are more regulate. If I say, I'm looking for the word to use, but they're all generally very similar in the way that they react to you, and they show you the signs, and you can very often then judge what they're going to do next. Now, with elephants, they do show you very often similar signs, and that you can read the behavior, but they are so intelligent that they can change that behavior and throw in a real different way of doing it. And obviously with lions, yes, you do get individuals and individual behavior, but they're not as intelligent as elephants, and they don't change as much per se. So it's more difficult to judge what an elephant is going to do, and he can change his behavior from 1 minute being totally relaxed to the next minute being very moody and very aggressive, for instance. So it's just that difference in behavior that for me is difficult to judge with elephants, whereas with lions, if he's showing you his body in one way, you can judge that what he's going to be doing next. So that's why I would rather walk into lions than with elephants. And I also find it easier to stand my ground or to, shout at lions and they move away. They're actually rather disappointing in the sense that you can very often follow a trail of lions for the entire morning, and eventually when you spot them in the distance or just over a hill, they run away. Whereas elephants, they're not going to be generally running away from you. Breeding herds, they can run away, but then you need to be very careful of those bodyguard young females that do protect the herd. So those are the ones that we'd be very careful of. But generally with elephants, you just try and keep your distance, you read their behavior, and you're always in a good position then to be alright, and they can be alright as well. So that's the idea. We never want to disturb animals in the field. All we want to do is actually get into a point where we can view those animals without them knowing that we are there, and they continue in their totally natural behavior without even understanding that there's any change whatsoever. And then we extract from that situation without them ever knowing that we had been in their comfort zone and we're out of there with no change. All right, so we're continuing along a little bit here. Now, Becca asking the question, is there any animal that I would like to avoid when I'm out on trail? Yes, Becca, there are a few little critters and animals. Obviously, we don't want to get into difficult situations with big animals, so we always want to know beforehand, that we are approaching a potentially dangerous animal, and those are the big ones, like leopard, lion, buffalo, etc. We just want to be in the right frame of mind that we do know that we're going into that area. But the other animals that we potentially walk in without knowing are things like snakes, black mambas, maybe a puff adder. So it's all about our situational awareness. We need to be awake when we're walking in the bush, not only for our own sake, but more so for the animals, because it's not fair if we are walking through the bush just pretending that we don't know what's going on, or literally not knowing what's going on. We can potentially walk into a situation where we will have to defend ourselves, which is not what we want to be doing. We need to be awake. We need to be listening what's going on, because the bush talks to us and it tells us if there's an elephant around, we should be hearing that little crack of the branch or the rumbling communication that they do between us. And if I'm walking along a road like this and there are some lions nearby that we potentially haven't picked up, they will normally just give us a little low growl. And if we pick that up, we stop and we return, we move back. absolutely no problem. But if we don't pick that warning up, they're warning us, you're getting too close to us. If we don't pick that up because we are not listening to the bush, we can then get into a closer scenario, which then obviously will make them react and make us react to their reaction. So that's what we want to avoid. We want to be listening. We need to be aware of what is going on around us, and everybody then is in the best scenario that we could be in. So right now, we're not hearing anything sort of those kind of warning signs. We've been following on the tracks of Mvula, and it seems that Herbert has found some moving through the thicket over there, but we always maintain that awareness. So, we haven't found any of the lion tracks for the moment, but I do know that over in the Mara, Brent has found the lions for you.
Well, the Paradise Pride are up on the move, some of them at least. We're just keeping an eye on where they're going. Oh, across the water we go. And behind the croton bush. I just want to have a real quick reverse back to where we had the rest of the Pride sitting up. There's only 2 of them that I saw that moved off. But I think they're going to pop out around Dusty Crossing. Just have a look if we can see any others. And the others still sitting happy. No. So they're all on the move now, but as I say, it's quite difficult to keep track of them through the Croton. Oh no, there are still some sitting up there on top of the rock. Now this is quite often the case with the Paradise Pride. You'll see 1 or 2 or 3, and others will just be lazing about somewhere else. I suppose it makes sense to leave lions at different crossing points. It increases your odds of catching one. As we saw a couple of days ago, when only a single female grabbed that adult zebra, and the hyena started harassing her, but the rest of the Pride heard the commotion and came storming in. Okay, let's try to keep up with the ones that are moving. Okay, now last spot I saw was just through here. Now, there was one that moved quite far ahead of that first one. So it's going to be a little bit difficult through these croton thickets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go actually up ahead of the croton thickets and wait for them to pop out if they pop out. Also, it'll give us a chance to see if those zebra are starting to move down towards the river. While we do that, Jamie is with some of the giants of the Mara.
Well, a tiny giant. A giant in the making. How about that? A giant in the making in the Mara. This is one of my favorite elephant herds, and although unfortunately the lighting is truly terrible, the light is so white this morning and they're right into the sun, there's not much we can do about it, but I love this elephant herd. The 2 females with the upturned tusks and the 2 little ones that are so very bold and brave. And this particular herd is so relaxed around vehicles that they've become a firm favorite of mine. Hello, little ones. You can just see tiny head and curled trunk between the legs of giants. I'd love to know the dynamics of this herd, because these 2 are obviously very close in age, and I'd love to know if they're cousins or half siblings or what their connection is. And by that I simply mean I wonder how their moms are related to each other, because of course all females are related to each other within an elephant herd. Oh, little one, you are too sweet. You can see it's still too young to have fully grasped this whole trunk deal, and wrapping it around the blades of grass, but not all that successfully. And the same applies to the older one as well. Neither of them have fully mastered this whole trunk business. Oh, goodness, there we go. That's right. You've got the right idea. It's okay if you get one stalk at a time. You'll learn. Look. Oh, look, you've got one piece. Well done. Well done. That wasn't even a very nice piece, was it? Okay, try again. Try again. Here we go. There we go. Okay, now you've got to put it in your mouth. That's the whole point. No, you dropped it. You dropped it. Okay, try again. Come on, there's plenty of nice grass. It's all fresh and green. Questionable technique there. Now, Brent, yes, I have seen elephants travel tail to trunk. You wanted to know if it's a myth. It's not a myth. They do walk in single file. Often where there's thick vegetation, they have to walk in single file. Oh, what are you doing, little one? This whole trunk business is all very complicated. But you will often see babies reach for the tail of the elephant in front of them. It's a comfort thing. They also suck their trunks like children suck thumbs. Oh, they can't reach for that youngster's tail. It doesn't have one. It's only got a half a tail. But yes, occasionally little baby elephants do reach out and grab the tail of the elephant in front of them, regardless of whether or not it's actually mum. But they don't hold on to it and walk like something out of the Jungle Book. But that contact, that constant reaching for contact is a thing. And it's very sweet to witness. And if they don't reach out for the tail, they'll reach out and touch the back of the leg or the trunk. Always constantly looking for that affirmation. Must be so lovely to be a baby elephant. So well protected. TA? No, it's an entirely different herd. It's definitely not the herd that was in the mist yesterday morning. If you remember correctly, there was one barrel of a female, for a start, who was about to, very much on the verge of giving birth. And there was also a female without tusks. This herd's much smaller, and it's also very far away from where we were. So we drove for about an hour or so to get to where we were yesterday. And right now we're right at the base of the hill where we come down from camp. But this is a herd that's familiar to us, and you can see that large, she's the oldest female in the group. She's got very upturned tusks, upwardly curved tusks. So bright this morning. All that rain has cleaned out every speck of dust in the atmosphere. I love these two little double trouble. Weed? No. The mum won't feed the baby elephant grass if the baby elephant doesn't manage to grab it with their trunks. They have to learn. And bear in mind that when they do start eating solid food, they still continue to suckle for a good, actually, couple of years before they move on to solid food. So they've got plenty of time to master the whole trunk twirling business. And what they're doing, remember, they're very, very intelligent. It's like a toddler learning to grasp and to catch, and the sort of finer levels of motor coordination. They are very intelligent, and they're mimicking. Right, I'm going to try, what I was going to try is sort of get Jahawi into a slightly better position, because at the moment, it's still very bright, but at least we can watch their little bottoms disappear. Right, let us block up the entire road. Couldn't possibly go wrong. Is there anyone behind me? We good? We are good. There we go, one last look at retreating bottoms. I'm certain that... Oh, I'm not certain. That's nonsense. I'm not certain at all. But I think that the older female, whose bottom we're currently looking at, the largest bottom of the group, I think she's the oldest female, and I think she's the matriarch, and I think that the second oldest female is either a younger sister or a daughter. Okay, so basically I've given you every option, and that's not very profound, but she just looks so much younger than the female with the very pointy tusks, or the very upturned tusks. That lady over there. She looks younger, and she looks in really good condition. Aww. I'm using Mom as a scratch post there. Peaceful. Very, very peaceful. And these two are going to be best buddies for life. I couldn't see if we had a male or a female because of the grass length. But they're going to grow up so close. Synchronized rocking. Now Mario would like to know about whether or not African elephants are larger than Indian or Asian elephants, and the answer is yes, they are on average, and the largest specimens, or sort of the record holders, weigh over or have been recorded to weigh over 10 tons. And you'll also find there are actually 3 different species of elephants. The third is the forest elephant, which you find in Africa as well, only recently classified as a separate species. But you're looking at the bush elephant, which is the species that we're looking at now, being the heaviest and the largest of all of them. The forest elephants are on average slightly smaller. That must tickle. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? Stick your trunk in your friend's ear. It's not a very good idea. Play with me! Is basically what's happening here. Play with me! Stop trying to eat grass and play with me. I'm bored. I'm bored and I want attention. There we go. Persistence paid off. We're having a wrestling match now. Bravo to the little one for sheer persistence. Whoopsies. Whoopsies, did you fall down? Yes, that's what happens when you pick a fight with somebody bigger than you. Somebody who's a bit older and a little bit more sturdy on those 4 legs. Oh, no, I don't want to play anymore. Now Mom's there, I might want to suckle. No, maybe I want to play. No, I'm going to go to Mom. Oh, I'm going to walk into Mom's leg. Oh, no, I've bashed my head on Mom's leg. And sit down. Plonk. Oh, what happened there? Was that intentional or accidental? We're going to pretend it was intentional. I think you fell in a hole. Come on, up you get. Up you get. Up you get. When in doubt, in a fight like this, go dead weight. Uh-oh. Oh dear, this is not worked out according to plan. Oh dear. Oh no. Now you're in trouble. Guys, I'm really sorry. I might have to move. I'm blocking, as I said, I'm blocking up the entire road. Let's just see if this person wants to stop for a little bit. But I've basically parked, I've made a roadblock. Come on. Maybe no, they've stopped for a bit. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Come on, up you get. Oh, there you go. Oh, that didn't work out very well, did it? A little bit of loss of dignity there. What is happening? Is that a very, very tricky place to navigate? Oh, little backwards ninja kick just happened. I confess to being not entirely sure what this little one's gender is. Down again. That's exactly what I was like as a child. I fell over my own feet all the time. Up you get. Oh, wonderful. It seems like it is an elephant-themed morning, and while I have to move out of the way so that the vehicles can go past, Noel has lived up to the tradition of the morning and found you something much larger than the baby elephants we've been watching.
I have. We've got a big bull elephant who's been slowly feeding around us for quite some time now. And interestingly enough, he crossed the road in front of our vehicle, ate some grass, and is now busy doing a bit of displacement behavior and watching me down the side of his body. He's seen us this whole time. He's just deciding now that he feels like being a little bit difficult, and then made up his mind that it's fine, he's going to carry on. Now, just to his right-hand side, up and over the bank is a breeding herd. We can't really see them. I'm just waiting for them to come down. We're not far from Twin Dams, so I'm kind of hoping that, because it's very warm now, as it warms up, that the breeding herd's going to come through the Milwaukee here and then go and have a drink down by the dam that side. This bull's just busy eating the fresh green grass that's growing on the side of the banks of the Milwaukee here. Now he wants to come back towards us. Hello, sir. Elephant bulls are always a little bit cheekier. They feel the need to sort of show you that they're a big elephant bull. Hey, buddy. We've been here the whole time. Oh, gorgeous. Right past us. Had a little bit of a look-see, but he's very happy doing what he's doing. Now it'll be interesting when we start the car what he decides to do after that, because me moving or making a noise could possibly have him thinking that we're trying to engage, and all we've been doing here is sitting very still and watching him. So his need to sort of show his dominance over us is thwarted by the fact that we're being very nonchalant and not engaging in that activity at all. Here he smells us. You see that? See how he's turning his trunk like that? He's smelling us. He's also listening to me the whole time, pretending to ignore us, but very aware, looking for any excuse. Rian, you're curious to know, at what age do elephants reach maturity? So the females are able to start having babies around the age of sort of 9 or 10.
Welcome back, and we just popped out onto the road. You've just crashed, cut over to us. I think something happened with Noel, but right in front of us here, we've got a lovely little tapestry going on. Look at these very interesting little ants. Now, they're right next to a nice hyena track, and these ants, it's quite interesting because they're very different to that of termites. You see how all around this little hole, there's this sort of soil that you can see is a different color to underneath, to the surroundings. So they've obviously, this is like a bit of a rubbish dump where they go under the ground and then they're pulling this soil out. They're obviously excavating underneath the ground, and they're very often also going and getting little grass clippings, but they're not doing like what a lot of the termites are doing with the fungus gardens. These ones are actually feeding on it a lot easier. So just looking out over here, we've spotted something Viv just pointed out to me. Lovely. There's all sorts. We've got a leopard track just over there, and it's quite interesting. This is the back foot. All right. Now I just going to grab a piece of grass so that I can show you a couple of little things on a leopard track. Now you can see, if you look at this, it's quite elongated, this track. If we look at the width of it versus the length, it is quite a bit longer than it is wide. All right. Now, that would also indicate to us a male or a female, because on the back foot of lions and leopard, generally the males, now I say in general, because we also have the youngsters, which are a little bit different. The males, generally their back foot is as long as it is wide. So we would think that this is more tending to be that of a female. But let's look at the front foot. Okay, this is the front foot over here. If we look at that width, okay, it's as long as it is wide, but we're looking more at that back foot. Okay, so this for me is a female that has walked through here. It can be a female, but it can also be a little bit of a younger male, because the younger males have a tendency to have the body shape and foot structure of a female until they get of age, when they start to full out and their feet start to show almost what their body is presenting to. Now, we did have that lovely leopard track that has moved through here, but we've also got a very little creature that has been wandering through here. That's a track there, and another track there, another track there, but this looks like it was actually that of dwarf mongoose who have been running up and down. So that's quite interesting. Now, that is lovely, because we can see that there were leopard here. There's dwarf mongoose, which we know have been running up and down the road in all the places that we do move around. Now, there's another little creature here as well. Over there. You see that? There's two toes there. This looks like that of a duiker. Now, I want Fiam just to stay down there, because this is fantastic to show the different foot structures of all the different animals that we generally find in the field. And it's normally 3 different kinds of foot structures that we're looking for. We're looking for the plantigrade, okay, which is the whole hand or the whole foot on the ground, remember? Which we're not seeing here. That's generally your primates, monkeys, baboons, humans. Then we've got digitigrade, which we do see here, which is the fingers, just the fingers showing on the ground, which is what a leopard exhibits, and so does the mongoose. So they're walking on the fingers, but the whole of the fingers, all right? And then anguligrade, which is walking right on the tips of the toes, and that is what is exhibiting in the duiker track. And that's literally only 2 toes running right on the tips of his toes, like a super athlete, like Usain Bolt, running on the tips of their toes, and that obviously gives them a lot more speed to work with. Now, there's one other little track, and that's why it's absolutely fascinating. You look in one small little area here, and we can find the signs of so many little animals that have moved through. See these little lines? It's 1, 2, 3, and on the other side as well. So we've got a line of little toes that have walked through there, and we've got another line of little toes that have walked through there. And it's that distance apart is more or less that of a beetle, and he's got 3 legs on each side, being an insect. So that would indicate that. So we've got beetles, we've got leopard, we've got antelope, we've got mongoose, and over here we've got something else as well. What I was showing you a bit earlier was the millipede on that apple leaf. Now his toes are so close together, or his legs are so close together, that when he walks, it's like 2 trams tram lines right next to each other, and it goes in a straight line like that. You remember what I said, the difference between millipede and centipede? Centipede would be walking more in a serpentine motion, whereas here with a millipede, it's like in a tram line, two lines going in the same direction. And you can actually see how he's walked up along the road here, all the way along. Now, this is quite interesting coming through over here. We've got a little ant's nest there and another ant's nest over here. But in between, you can see this highway that has been walked by these ants. And they've taken out all the big stones out of the way, also making the road more easy to travel. So, and it is absolutely amazing. Now, there are other big animals that do similar things to this, and they do it through big mountains. They always walk through the path of least resistance, and I think Noel is going to show you exactly what I'm talking about.
You're right, Ralph. Elephants do like to take the path of least resistance, unless you're a cheeky young bull, and then sometimes you like to go out of your way to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. Sorry about losing you earlier there. We just had a funny little dip here on the side of Mlawati, but we are now up near Twin Dams again, and this male is slowly feeding his way towards the dam. So, as we were saying earlier, females can have babies as early as sort of 9, but they usually start having their first one around 13, if not a little bit older, depending on the structure of the herd and the resources available. Males are able to start procreating with females physically when they're, in their late teens, but generally the females will pick older males, sort of 35 and older, to reproduce with. So it's very similar to humans. Our bodies are ready earlier than is culturally acceptable for us to be having babies, if that makes sense, to finish off our thoughts with that. Now, something that Ferg and I were just chatting about now is notice the angular side to his forehead. Usually males have a very round forehead. He's presenting a little bit like a female would on the side there. And it's interesting because we were talking about it the other day about when males are going through puberty and females going through puberty, they sometimes exhibit symptoms, or not symptoms, but hello, my boy, really? Is this necessary? You're just being extra super cheeky today. Present some features of the opposite sex. And so for me, I think maybe he just had a little bit of a late puberty and is just exhibiting a bit of a female tendency on the forehead there. So we've been with him for probably a half an hour in total now. He's fully aware with us. He's choosing to enter our space bubble very closely, but he's doing so in a relaxed manner. And so I'm just letting him do what he needs to do. And Wena, you heard me. Now you're going to be extra cheeky. Can you not be like that, please? There's no grass under my car. Ja, ek sien jou. Asseblief. You came into my space bubble here. Please, move off. Yeah, you heard me. Move off. Buddy, come now. Don't behave like this, it's rude. It's very rude. He knows he's being extra super rude as well. And that's what he thinks of us. I'm really not in the mood today. I'm not in the mood. Tristan has this theory that the frequencies tracked elephants, and it's interesting because I've had more male elephants come up close to the vehicle than at any other time. Guys, I'm going to start the car and just move back a little bit because he's deciding that my space bubble is his space bubble and he doesn't want to move out. Yes, I see you and I know that you hear me. Go eat your bush. Go eat your bush. Please. Don't you dare. Wena. Go to your dam. Go drink your water. I know you want to. Yeah, exactly. Go drink your water. Thank you. I'm going to go move around that side. So I'm talking to him in a tone of voice that dictates sort of how I feel about what his choices were. I'm just going to just angle us a little bit, just so he's aware that, yes, he did come into our space bubble, and I was fine with it. And then, because of his eyeballing me and trying to be a male elephant, I'm just saying to him, like, no, we don't behave like this. And I was speaking in English. I don't usually speak in English. I usually speak to them in Afrikaans. So I'm not quite sure why I transferred over into English. It could be because I'm live with you guys and I'm busy in my head trying to communicate what I'm seeing so you all can understand me. That could possibly be it. But just that sort of scenario that we had now, there's no threatening posture. There's nothing there that was dangerous or anything like that. He's just trying to be him, and I'm just telling him he's being inappropriate. And then until the reason why I moved is that, yes, he might be listening to a point, but also he might decide, well, you know, I feel like being a bit more assertive in trying to show you my dominance. So then I say, no, that's not okay. I move myself out of that scenario, and then he just carries on doing what he's doing. And you notice there, when I went back a little bit, and then he looked and he's like, ooh, sorry, maybe I'm too close to these people. And then I spoke to him again, and then when I drove forward, he moved just a little bit, going, oh, okay, now I've overstepped my bounds. So he realized what he was doing. Although the blowing of the leaves on his back and dismissal of us was pretty hysterical, Berg. Oh. And he's still listening, he's still aware, he still knows exactly what's potting. Yeah, he did. He came into our bubble nicely. It's interesting. Usually with males, they'll come into our space bubble like that and sort of have a look and then move off. But he's more intrigued with us, which is a reason why I bring up this comment that Tristan and I were chatting about the other day with the vibration coming equipment. It's really super interesting. Remember, elephants do a lot of their communication through subsonic, through infrasound, through their feet. And I was chatting with my researcher friend on Instagram the other day, just talking a little bit about vocalizations and wanting to get into some questions we had the other day. And she was saying that the research that they're doing is ongoing. It's not conclusive yet, but that the sounds that we can hear with our ears, but then also the ones that we pick up with equipment, actually is only touching on a very small amount of what they can actually do. So I have a hum that's coming out of the back of my vehicle now that deals with the equipment that we have, but then also if they could hear that like with their ears, like I can now, but then there's also vibrations and feelings and electrical pulses that are coming off from us. And so the thought process, when Tristan and I were chatting about this the other day, was that there's something about it that they can register and find slightly more intriguing than when we're in a normal game drive vehicle when we don't have all this equipment. It's an interesting thought. So he's checking it out. And then now he's come back out into the road. I mean, he's still eating his gory tree, but he's choosing again to not engage with us, but he's finding us very interesting this morning. And again, not in an aggressive manner at all, just interested. Like every time I move, he wants to go where I am. Like now. You can hear me talking about you. I think you're doing this on purpose, my friend. Okay. Ooh. Yes, watch how he uses his tusk and his trunk. Let's listen for a minute. It's absolutely amazing what they can do. So he decided he didn't want the whole branch. He just wants to get those little leaves. They're particular about which leaves they choose. Getting the last little bits out there. G-Weed, you're curious to know if elephants destroy a lot of bird nests when they're chewing on trees. The only time I've ever seen a bird nest affected by an elephant was one that they didn't realize was there. It was towards the upper side of a tree that they pushed over to get to the root system. But in general, no. I mean, one, they can see, and then two, when they're going up to get the leaves and the branches, they're smelling and specifically going after certain ones. So I would imagine if there was something in the nest, they would be aware. I don't know if someone else has maybe had another experience, or maybe if you guys have seen something different on the show in years past. But in my personal experience, I've only seen that one nest and it was a nest that wasn't in use. An interesting thought. You can see there with the tip of his trunk how he's being very particular about what, like he grabbed that one now and then threw it away. He didn't want that one. Now he wants this one. Also, with the tree that he's eating now, we've chatted about it a little bit before, it's very high in tannins, so it's interesting that he's choosing to eat it now. But my thought the other day when I was watching females eat it was there's some flowers there, so it must be slightly more palatable this time of year. It tends to be a tree that's not eaten often. It's got very waxy leaves. Not the most palatable. But he seems to be enjoying the bits of flowers and the new growth. Eye half closed, super relaxed. All right, let's head on back to the Mara, where Brent has something very scaly and large to show you.
Pebble worms. Now, of course, that is the breakdown of their scientific name. Hello, pebble worm. It's a bit more fearsome than a pebble worm to me. Now, we get some very big crocs in the Mara, but not all that long in length. And the biggest Nile crocodile accurately ever recorded is 6.45 meters from Lake Victoria, around the Mwanza district in Tanzania. Now, there are reports of 7-meter Nile crocodiles, even 9-meter Nile crocodiles. Most of those are very old and very, very false. Your average size of a male Nile crocodile is between 3.8 and 4 meters, depending on whereabouts in the world you are. Now, Kenya's had some very big crocodiles recorded, and mostly all in a certain area, in the Similiki River in Kenya. That had recorded the biggest crocodiles from Kenya, all between 5.4 and 5.9 meters. The largest Nile crocodile skull ever recorded is from Ethiopia, and was 27 inches long, and had a mandible length of 37 inches. And it wasn't even that big. It was 5.6 meters, so even as big as the biggest crocodiles, just had a very massive head. Now, who can tell me, outside of mainland Africa, where else crocodiles occur? Where else outside of Africa do crocodiles, Nile crocodiles specifically, occur? They used to occur all the way to Israel, across the Mediterranean, but they are no longer there now. But there is somewhere else outside of Africa where Nile crocodiles occur indigenously. Now, Leanne's wondering, are they sometimes called flat dogs? They are, very much so. It is a nickname for crocodiles. Specifically just because you can see often their eyes and snout sticking out of the water. Now, I know we've got quite a few of our viewers who live in Florida. Now, there's a bit of a worry in Florida at the moment about an escaped population of Nile crocodiles in and around the Everglades. There have been about 6 specimens caught. They haven't been breeding, so that's good news, because if they do, they are a lot more dangerous than an alligator or an American crocodile, and they get a lot bigger as well and heavier. Now, from the genetics of the escaped, well, they're probably escapees from some sort of zoo or croc farm or whatnot. From the genetics of the escapees, they come from South Africa originally, those crocodiles. But we've waited a long time for our lions to come back, and I think they've flopped down somewhere in these croton thickets to the right. And the zebras aren't making their way down towards this crossing. So we're going to go check up towards Maine, north and south, and leave Dusty, not Dusty today, because there's nothing leaping into the water. Okay, now crocodiles are absolutely fascinating creatures to me. They are so incredibly adaptable. So in areas where it's cold and high, historically the crocodiles get a lot smaller. So they are extinct in a lot of parts of South Africa now, but the crocodiles, as you got further down towards the Western Cape, were quite a bit smaller. The biggest crocodiles, Nile crocodiles in Africa, actually come from all over. So anything over 5 meters is considered to be exceptionally large, and there are very few specimens in this day and age of over 5 meters, and that mostly is because of the big sort of fetish for crocodile leather during the 40s, 50s, and even into the 60s. And a lot of those really big crocodiles, and actually crocodile populations in all, were heavily decimated. Now, the really big individuals have become quite sneaky, and they try to avoid confrontations with humans. They still will eat humans. Let's not get confused about that. But they're become very sneaky. They don't bask out in the open, and if they do, it'll be sort of in a papyrus bank. So it's very interesting. Sorry, I thought I saw something. It's just the Tommy. So they are able to live for over 100 years. Now, the most famous Nile crocodile presently at the moment is Gustav of Lake Tanganyika. Gustav is estimated to be over 6 meters. And so far, with accurate records, there's only been 3 Nile crocodiles recorded at over 6 meters. And then 2 of them are from this part of the world, Lake Tanganyika. Oopsie, sorry. And the third is actually from Zambia, from the Kafue River. So it's debatable that prior to that sort of mass cull of crocodiles, where people were shooting big crocs and not really measuring them, there would have been quite a lot of much bigger specimens. And they take a long time to get to that sort of size, and they also take a long time to recover, well, populations to get creatures of that size. Now you can see here in the Mara, not such a problem, lots of big crocs, but they don't have to move around as much or swim as much in their daily lives in terms of getting prey. So that's probably why you find they're not as long. But I'm sure there's some individuals here that are very close to 5 meters, but they seem to have a much bigger girth. Now, a crocodile of 5 meters or 5.5 meters can have a circumference of up to 2 meters, which is incredible. That's a circumference of more than my height. Ah, there we go. Well done, James. James got it spot on. The other place outside of Africa where Nile crocodiles occur indigenously, so the Florida population is by no means indigenous, is of course Madagascar. They were in the Seychelles and the Comore Islands till the late 1800s, before they became extinct there from human persecution. And occasionally one will turn up on Zanzibar or Mafia Island, and the Pemba Islands, other Indian Ocean islands that are much closer to mainland Africa. And you probably find they did occur there in the past and have been exterminated. Now, the other interesting thing is that apart from the bony plates that crocodiles have that separates it from alligators, one of the most important things that all true crocodile species have salt glands, which enables them to go into salt water or brackish water, and those salt glands help exude all the salt that they soak in through their skin while they are traveling through salty water. So all true crocodilians, American crocodiles, caiman, which is a crocodile, Nile crocodile, are all are able to operate in salt water and get rid of that salt without it causing much damage. Now, crocodiles have an incredible amount of... Ooh, quickly, see the little birdies, that man, on this little mound. Here we go. That's definitely going to be quite a nice new one for a lot of people's Mara bird list. Can we get any closer? No. Here we go. See the little tiny little spots? Isn't that pretty? Now, I know our birders like a challenge, so you guys are going to have to tell me what bird that is. Hashtag Safari Live. I'm not going to give it away, but I'm just going to finish up on the crocodiles quickly. So, also crocodiles have an incredible amount of lactic acid, and that is what enables them to be able to sit for 2 or 3 hours without moving at all. Now, having high lactic acid, or the sort of a normal amount of lactic acid in a crocodile, is enough to kill most mammals and most other reptiles. And the reason they have that is the ability to sit and wait. That lactic acid sits there and they can draw on it. But there is always a danger with high lactic acid count, that overexertion will actually kill the animal from a lactic acid buildup. Now, this has never been recorded with wild animals attacking wildebeest or zebra or fighting or mating. It only really happens when human beings have been catching crocodiles and put them under duress for an extremely long time, or something that the crocodile's not used to. That lactic acid buildup actually kills the crocs. Now, talking about by far the largest reptile in Africa, it sounds like Rolf has got one of the smaller reptile species all the way back in South Africa to show you.
Yes, folks, from one reptile to another. Here we don't have a crocodile, but we've got something just as interesting. Now, these are one of the only 2 very common tortoises that we find in the area. Shame she's being a little bit nervous, but we'll try not to disturb her too much. Now, we've got a little bit of a mating pair here, and they were going about nicely doing their thing. And I just want to go back to what I was mentioning the other day about aging tortoises by the rings on their scutes. Now, I was handed a little bit of research from James, who said I should just look into it, and I have subsequently, and it's not, for instance, particularly about the years that we will be able to judge from those ridges and troughs on the scutes. It's actually more so to do with times of a lot of resources versus times with very few resources. So it's basically feast and famine. Times of feast and famine, the big ridges will be times when there was feast, and the troughs will be times when it was famine. So it's mostly around water and calcium intake. So that would be the 2 resources that is mostly then being defined in those ridges. So it is a good estimate of time, but you would have to be looking at the different seasons and seeing when the resources were available or not. So it's not perfectly a indication of the years per se, but more so of times of feast and famine. So this is the Speke's hinged tortoise, and remember that we do get the leopard tortoise. This particular species, quite a flat shell on the back. Remember, that is an extension of their skeleton, of their backbone. So it's really a part of them. It's not something that just grows around them. It grows really from their back. So they need a high calcium intake to assist in that, and that means that they will eat on eggshells, they will eat snail shells, they will also eat fresh leopard, hyena and lion scat, and all the rest that goes with it. Now the lions do feed on these Speke's hinged tortoise. I know that the other day, I think it was with Noelle, when she had the pride of lions in the drainage line, one of the females had got hold of the one, and she wouldn't share it with any of the others. Now, I think it's a lot easier for them to bite down onto these shells because they're quite flat on the top, as opposed to that of a leopard tortoise, which is a lot rounder. And I think the leopard tortoise got slightly thicker shell as well. So the lions can't really get a good grip on it and a good bite on it. And also with it being slightly thicker, they can't bite through that shell of the leopard tortoise. So that the reason, I think, behind them actually liking the Speke's hinged tortoise, they can actually get into it. A little bit flatter, a little bit thinner shell, so they actually feed on them. Other animals that would feed on a tortoise, I've seen hornbills, especially ground hornbills. They will peck out the little guy from the inside, which is not very nice to watch, but at the same time that enables the hornbill to get a lot of his energy requirements. And I've also seen yellow-billed hornbills and red-billed hornbills attacking little young tortoises that have just hatched from the nest. So they do fulfill food sources as well. Now, G-Weed asking the question, are tortoises ever in danger of being crushed by other animal species? Absolutely, G-Weed. In fact, I've actually been next to a waterhole to prove that point, and there must have been a tortoise drinking down next to this waterhole in the mud, because when I arrived, I was following a rhino trail, a white rhino trail, and it led me down to this waterhole, where I subsequently was following the track into the water and into the mud, and in one of the rhino tracks, literally inside the track, was a squashed hinged tortoise. So shame. He got squashed by probably around 3,500 to 4,000 pounds of white rhino inside the track, and shame. He was literally squashed. So they do run the risk of getting squashed by elephants, rhino, both black and white, possibly even buffalo, even hippos. So they do need to try and either get out of the way, and if they are unlucky enough to get under the foot of one of these animals, they would be squashed. But generally, they're quite sensitive. I'm talking about the animals walking. So an elephant per se, very often he might, if he's walking on hard ground, he would put his foot on top of that tortoise, probably feel it's there and lift it up. As you would do if you put your bare foot onto a stone. You can feel that stone and you lift your foot up. But with that rhino that I saw, it was obviously in soft mud, and he hadn't felt that tortoise getting squashed into the soft mud. Now, this looks like a little male that is now coming past. Dark Star asking the question, what is the difference between a tortoise and a turtle? Now, I'm just moving out of his way a little bit. I don't want to block him. So the difference between a tortoise and a turtle, a tortoise being terrestrial. So he stays on land and he doesn't generally swim. The leopard tortoise is quite special that they are able to swim, but they swim in fresh water, in little pans and water holes, etc. Whereas a turtle, they live in the ocean. They are marine reptiles, and they will spend most of their life swimming around in the currents of the ocean, feeding on all sorts of plankton and phytoplankton and zooplankton and all sorts, and then they will return to land only to nest. And once the babies hatch, they then follow the moon into the ocean, and they continue in that following the currents of the sea. So the difference being that tortoise being terrestrial and the turtles being marine. They do seem like such characters in their face. They almost look like they're smiling. Tortoises can live for many, many years, and the Chelonian, that's going right beneath Wiem's legs, the Chelonian, the shell reptiles being some of the oldest reptiles that we have on the planet. So we need to respect tortoises because they've been around a lot longer than we have. And I think, respecting your elders, I think is quite pertinent here. And even a small one like that can be already into its later teens or early 20s. It's quite impressive how long reptiles can live. Because remember that they are ectothermic, so this does not mean that they're cold-blooded. This is a fallacy. They're not cold-blooded because they do get warm blood, but they are reliant on their surroundings for warming up the blood. When their blood is cold, they are lethargic, they are inactive, and they need to take heat, normally from the sun or from the ground, and they take that heat, they warm up, and that gives them the energy then to operate. So their metabolism is not internally producing heat like we do. Endothermic, we create our own energy, our own heat, so that we can operate regardless of whether it is hot or cold. Obviously we operate more optimally at different temperatures, but we still produce our own heat and energy. Whereas with the turtles and tortoises and all the other reptiles, they need the sun or external heat to be able to create that energy and that heat, and for them to operate. So when it's very cold, they go into a state of dormancy, or they're not very active, and when it then warms up, that's when they become active. So now the morning is heated up. For instance, last night or early this morning, he maybe be very lethargic, very slow, and at this point of the day, it's now warmed up a lot, so it's allowed him to get the energy and the metabolism for him to operate. All right. Okay, folks, the wind is blowing in my face and I do get a little bit of a smell of breakfast. So we're starting to head towards the end of the morning's bushwalk. So thank you very much for joining us, and I do hope you join us later this afternoon and also tomorrow morning with another bushwalk. But in the meantime, let's cross over to Noel, who is driving around, I think.
Hello. Oh, excuse me. I'm still having a little bit of sniffles from our very, very wet and cold mornings and afternoons a couple days ago, so excuse me with that. So our elephant bull, after we went off air, came up to us one more time, smelled us, and then carried on. So we left him. Still super interesting how interested in us he was. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. It was an amazing sighting. Okay, my leg is burning, which usually means that the sun has reached the point where it is much warmer than it actually feels, because as we're driving around, there is a little bit of a breeze. So I agree with Ralph, it is definitely almost time for breakfast. I myself will be heading back shortly, and then sending you up to Brent and Jamie and the Mara to have a wonderful half an hour with them up in East Africa. Such a beautiful contrast between us here in Djuma with this low feld, with this thicker bush, beautiful open plains of the Masai Mara. It's really amazing that span 4 hours every day, every morning, every afternoon. Definitely enjoyable. So this afternoon, I'm not quite sure what I'll be looking for this afternoon, and I think James might be out, but we'll have to wait and see. There's definitely a lot going on. That's the update I wanted to give you. The Nkuhumas were found in Biffleshoek over to my right hand side here, so hopefully they'll come back to us soon, although that's where our buffalo herds went to, so not quite sure. Shadow never popped out of Little Gowrie. There was another female leopard that was seen near Nkuru. heading towards Gowrie, Maine. So we'll have to wait and see what this afternoon has in store. Thank you so much. Let's head up to Jamie, who has some amazing crowned cranes.
They are amazing birds, and it doesn't matter how often we spend time looking at them would probably be the better way of phrasing that. They still are striking and unusual. I don't think you ever get used to looking at crowned cranes. There's just something so flamboyant about them. There's nothing subtle about the plumage of the crowned crane. I wonder whatever happened to the crowned crane feather I gave James. I wonder if it's still in the studio somewhere. I must have a look. It was my one exciting find out here. You don't often encounter feathers of theirs in really good condition, but I got one of the tail feathers. Beautiful maroon coloured feather. And recently the crowned cranes have been making me chuckle. It seems to be a steady pattern of the bird world that the most beautiful birds, or at least the most extraordinary looking birds, tend to have the most, I wouldn't say unpleasant calls, but the least musical calls. The little subtle birds that hide away, warblers and larks, they all trill away beautifully. Nightjars at night have another beautiful song. But the really pretty birds, like the rollers and the crowned cranes, have voices that perhaps are best kept to themselves. I'll show you what I mean while we watch our crowned cranes, because they're not going to call for us now, but they have been calling a lot recently. I'll play you what the call sounds like, because it's ridiculous. I'm sorry, don't be insulted. Right, what am I looking for? Birds. Here we go. First one I found is the crowned crane, and now I can't remember how to play the sound of it. Oh dear, it's all gone wrong. Why don't you have the sound? Oh, because I'm an idiot, that's why. You get the idea. That's a flock of them. When it's one individual, they sort of go, oh, that was a terrible impression. I don't quite know how to imitate the sound of the crowned crane. Maybe this will have an individual sound. Let's try it. See if it works. There. They're hilarious. Dark Star, you want to know if the hairstyle, the flamboyant crown that gives the crowned crane its name, does it serve any purpose? Breeding displays, essentially. It's basically, whenever you get something flamboyant or colourful in a bird, essentially the idea is reproductive purposes. So the better looking the bird is, the better condition they're in, the better or the more suitable they are as a choice for mate. So essentially that's pretty much it as far as I know. I mean, obviously they'll be able to feel, so it could kind of be like a set of whiskers, but it's not really, doesn't serve much of a purpose on the top of their heads. In fact, I think it would be more annoying than anything else. And of course it does serve to show the difference between, or distinguish between, a fully mature adult and a immature but fully fledged crane. So the immature cranes look completely different to the adults. We haven't seen one yet, have we? on our live safaris? I don't think so. Oh, I have to share this with you. My literal reading of bird calls. It's one of my favorite things in the world. The way that people describe the calls of birds. In this particular book, it is the calls a loud atmospheric bugling oo-ian or oo-wang. Wang? It's actually kind of descriptive. How on earth people come up. Can you imagine, just imagine the process, and I do this with pretty much every bird I see. I go and I read how their call's been described. Can you imagine the people, the authors of the various bird books, and please don't think that I have full respect for the amount of work that they have put in to compiling amazing reference books that we could not actually do our jobs without. But can you imagine the conversation? So, George, do you think that it sounds more like an oo-inya or an oo-wang sound? Oh, I don't know. Just imagine the conversation. Or maybe it's just me. But that's what I think of every time I read the bird calls. And imagine the greatly, or if you're James Henry, which I do understand, the greatly offensive decision to describe the chin-spot Battis's call as 3 blind mice, when so clearly it doesn't sound anything like 3 blind mice. The intervals are all wrong. The notes are all wrong. Doesn't sound anything like it. And yet described as 3 blind mice. And some of the birds even say their names, which is very convenient of them. In fact, I mean, it's quite fantastic how they've planned that out. Maker, you want to know what crowned cranes eat, and I'm going to finish that train of thought in a second, because I just thought of it, and it's amazing. You want to know what crowned cranes eat? They'll eat seeds, they'll eat little insects as well. I've even seen one attacking a frog before, so they'll eat frogs as well. And once Taylor had the most amazing sighting of them fighting a python. That wasn't so much food-based as it was actually trying to, it was an enmity thing, trying to get the python to move away from the area that they were moving about in. Little freshwater mollusks will also fall victim to their sharper bills as they pluck their way through, which is why you usually, not always, but you usually see them in marshy areas. Now, in this particular patch, in this particular area, there's not all that much, but they're not far away. They're not far from a slightly more moist area. They're lovely birds. They really, really are. They also use their feet to stamp and catch insects, similar to the way that the secretary birds do. But the bird calls that I was thinking of was the things like the red-eyed dove, which very conveniently has a call that sounds like its name. I am the red-eyed dove. I am the red-eyed dove. And the Deirdrix cuckoo that says, dear, 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 Deirdrix. The turtle dove, Cape Turtle. It's very, very helpful of the birds to have calls that sound like their names. I'm very impressed with them. Ah, Hardy-da is the best one. Hardy-da, Hardy-da. Or in the case of the one that lived outside my childhood home in Johannesburg, had a damaged voice box. Is of course the best way of learning the names of the birds, or at least learning the calls associated with them. It's a great way of learning it. Rita, you say that you could picture James dancing to the tune of the crowned crane call. Me too. Thank you for that image. I really appreciate it. That's going to be with me all day now, because absolutely I agree with you. I could picture James's crowned crane dance. It'll be almost as impressive as his Nyala dance, which he does exceptionally well. But yep, I hear you. I also always think crowned cranes should be put to music. I've had lots of sightings in the Mara that I feel would be vastly improved by a suitable composition. Like the vultures and the lioness the other day. Every time she turned her back, 100 vultures came running back in her direction. It was hilarious, but it definitely could have used music. Not, of course, that the birds don't provide us with music of their own. Okay, so we're going to leave our crowned cranes now, perhaps pop past the Angamas and see whether they've moved from their termite mounds. I believe that a little bit earlier on, Brent asked you a question. I'm sure you're dying to know what the answer is.
Welcome back. So the zebras didn't look like they wanted to cross. The lions disappeared into the croton thickets. And the crocodiles were just being reptilian in their stillness. So we decided to move on. And of course we did see that very pretty little red bird before we left. Oh, speaking of pretty things. Craig, anything behind us? Oh, well done to Joey in Australia. You are correct. It was indeed a red-billed firefinch. Now, there's a beautiful flower. I'm trying to see if they're open. They're a bit far from us at the moment. Some of them are open, some of them are not open yet. There's some crinum lilies coming out after all the rain. This particular area here has become a complete swamp on both sides of the road. If you had to venture off, you would be up to your schnoz and mud. And you just, throughout the day here, you can hear frogs calling. Doesn't matter if it's night or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you can hear them. Rah, 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 rah. See if we can hear them. Of course, they become quiet when I drive close to them. Oh, there I can hear a frog. And you can see the water here, just everywhere. And the rubber frogs calling. Come on, call one more time. Such a pretty call. Come on, frog. Don't be shy. Oh, no. And the wind's starting to blow. Going to make it more difficult to hear. But if you come through here in the late afternoon or early evening, it's actually quite deafening, the amount of frogs that are calling from this little area. We're chatting about crocodiles, and strange enough, one of the largest crocodiles from southern Africa, from Botswana in particular, was killed by a crocodile hunter by the name of Bobby Wilmont. And I actually know his family from when we were kids. I grew up with his grandson, and it's one of the biggest. I think it was 5.67 meters, somewhere around there. But what's interesting about that particular crocodile, it was shot in an area where I've spent a lot of time, Shakawe, up on the panhandle of the Okavango, and its stomach contents, which are interesting. It had 2 goats, half a donkey, and the fully clothed torso of an adult woman in its stomach. Now, there are always anything they can eat. Whoop. Oh, we're causing traffic jams. Oh, exciting, Craig, exciting. Any more cars behind us? No. Okay. On top of that little bush there's a very pretty bird. And it looks like a red-collared widow. Turn around. Too small to be a Jackson's. Oh, where did it hop to? Come back, widow bird. There's another one. Oh, another bird. It's not a widow, though. It could be one of the smaller widows. Almost directly opposite me on top of the bush. There we go. Zoom. There we go. Oh, there we go. It is a widow. And you can see its back having that red coloration. So a different species to the one we were originally looking for. Oh, he's gone. That was a red-shouldered. There we go. He's back. Let's go forward a little bit. The one we were looking for originally. So the widow birds now with the rains, now it's coming back towards us, are coming back into their breeding plumage. Land. There we go. Good bird. Oh, is it a red-collared? Let's have a quick look. Has he gone again? Sure, busy. He's busy fighting with other males. Habari Indege. Very good, thanks.
Where are you guys from?
We're from South Africa, but we've got a camp up here.
All right.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Very good. We're actually live at the moment. We broadcast 100% live. So if you want to find out more, just have a quick Google search, #Safari Live, and you'll find out everything.
Not you, yeah?
Yeah.
What are you looking after right now?
Birds.
Birds.
Yeah, we're looking at widow birds.
Got it now?
Further down the road. Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.
Cool. Bye. Sorry about that, everyone. Oh, where's it gone? The birds are fighting with each other. Let me just I'll do that while we drive along. See, he didn't look too impressed that we were looking at birds. Any lions down the road? Yes, of course, yes. Carry on. Okay, let's have a quick look here. So it is indeed, I'm just going to wait for we can move down, a red-collared widow. So, but a different color variation from the one we normally get down in southern Africa. So in southern Africa, our red-collared widow has a red collar. Whereas here, it's got a red helmet. So you do get different color variations. I'm just going to get some shade over the car, so it's going to be easier for Craig and everyone. Let's do that. There we go. So you can see, well, that's the non-breeding male, but up at the top, you can see the two different color variations. So that's the one we've been seeing here. So, Sao helica, and not tropicus. There you go. That was the red collared. Now we did see another widow. Okay, well, I found the other widow we saw. Let's go see what Jamie's up to.
I don't mean to alarm anyone, but I just took a dung beetle to the face. It was quite the impact. I think I'm okay. I don't think my jaw's broken. It was touch and go for a second, but it's the occasional risk of life out here. It's generally more frequent. I've lost it now. It went down somewhere into the bowels of the car, but it happens more at night, obviously, when they see the car lights and they fly into you. But when you're moving at not even high speed, just a normal speed, and they're flying at sort of equal and opposite speed, according to Newton, the arresting of the momentum is quite painful and just butchered. a couple of Newton's laws there, but you get the idea. I once got a black eye from a very large, luckily this was a small dung beetle, but I once got a black eye from a dung beetle that big. You can imagine how I was mocked. And I think my brother was with me at the time, and I remember him cackling furiously at my misfortune. But it even, because they've got quite sharp, the wing casing is quite sharp, it even cut open my eyebrow. They're dangerous things. They really are. Flying dung beetles. Although it's the flying neloids that you really have to watch out for. And then they release acid onto your skin. Alright, okay, I've recovered. I've recovered from my traumatic experience. And then it fell down my top, you know. Yeah, walking it off. Shake it off. Okay, I wonder what these people have got over there. I actually came this way deliberately to look for the lions. It wasn't. I'm being slightly melodramatic. It wasn't that sore. The black eye was sore though. I mean, it wasn't a proper full-on black eye. I've had a few black eyes in my life. One came from a pillow fight. Went wrong. Another from a dung beetle. And quite a few from just walking into things. I'm not very coordinated. I wonder if that's where the lions have been hiding. All the way over there. I don't even know how to get there. Louise has suggested Google Maps. You joke, but once Scott and I followed the lions off-road here at night, before either of us knew the lay of the land all that well, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, it was just before Earth Live. We drove straight into the middle of a lodge. It was so embarrassing. Lights blazing, oh goodness. Scott and I immediately went lights down, snuck back out, reversing, trying to sneak away without being spotted. I can't imagine we got away with it though. I'm very curious, because if it's not the lions and it's in that lugger, it could actually be a sneaky leopard. Let's go find out. Ah, Judy H. How does a dung beetle impact compared to a bungee cord impact? Of course, in our initial stages of preparation in the Mara, we fell victim a few times to the bungee cords. James, of course, had it the worst. He actually really seriously, we joke about it a lot, but he could actually have lost an eye. It was quite distressing. So how does it compare to the impact? Well, I guess, Judy, we'd have to compare the tautness of the bungee cord, the end of the bungee cord, because some of them are plastic and some of them are metal hooks. And you can imagine that the metal hooks are far more traumatic than the plastic ones. And the size of the dung beetle. And the speed at which one is driving when one finds oneself eye to eye with a dung beetle. I still think, on average, the bungee cords are slightly more dangerous. You should have seen us at the end when we still had the old roof system. We had a full-on, almost military type terminology going on, where with our cameraman and the setup and the takedown, one of us would go, okay, I'm going down, duck down, clear, and then the other person would pull and hook. Oh, we planned things out. We learnt from James's injuries. I wonder if I have been, the topies, oh, it's a lion. I was about to say, I wonder if I'd been fooled, but there is a lion, and that's why the topi's alarm calling. Phew. I thought I'd followed all this way, only to be Jumbo. Okay, one of the Chitwa males, by the looks of things. Difficult to tell at this distance. What have you seen, mister? What are you looking at? Unfortunately, again, non-off-roading area. Definitely seen something that's interested him. I'm not quite sure what it is. You can see already temperatures skyrocketing. I think we're in for another balmy day in the Mara, which probably means another thunderstorm in the evening. What have you seen? I can't see anything. A yellow lorry, not a red lorry. A yellow lorry. A yellow lorry has now disappeared over the hills. We can't even... Oh, there's a red lorry. There's a red lorry and a yellow lorry. Goodness me. Only two, though. So we can't even do a proper tongue twister. Red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry. Pfft, says the topi. That's what he thinks of us. Oh, there's more lions. At the signposts. That's something interesting. Far away. Oh my goodness, right out on the main road almost. That's the main road that leads to Rianta. We always talk about the fact that there are no fences. There you go. Right at the boundary. So really far away. Oh, we weren't far off. And a green lorry. Or a grey lorry. Many a lorry. It's a main road, by the way. So it's pretty common to see trucks moving along it. That's the road that we take when we go to Musiara Gate. That's the first part of the journey where the road is pleasant. But that's not what he's looking at. Interesting to see the Chitwa males here, not because it's outside of their territory, it absolutely is within their territory. Where are you going? You look like you're slinking a little bit. Like you want to be under the radar. Well, those lions over there. No, those are rocks. No, those are definitely rocks. Okay, so 3 male lions. Interesting. The reason I think it's interesting that they're here is just because it's so close to the main road. Let's try and get one last view of him. I'm not sure we're going to manage it before the end of the sunrise safari, but the others are so far away. And I'm not going to be able to get around to them in time. But let me try and catch up with him. Just find out why he looks so slinky. Maybe he's just trying to get into the shade. Oh, this road's not taking me there. This is where Scott and I committed our social faux pas. Oh, that was fun times. Oh, the reason I was laughing at the Google Maps was because Graham was on Google Maps trying to direct us while we were lost. I think he might just be moving to shade. As I said, it's getting hot. Oh, whoa! Don't get stuck now, Jamie. No, I have committed a grievous error in judgment. The only thing I can see now is a... Oh no, there he is. He's popping out. Sort of. Not a bad way to finish off our sunrise safari, I suppose. It means that we have seen, in the course of our safari, 20 lions, 17 Angamas, and 3 males. My stomach's starting to rumble. It's telling me that breakfast is not all that far away, not all that distant a prospect. So, our lions disappearing into the lugger. I don't know what my plan will be for the sunset safari, but I'm sure that it's going to be an exciting one. Who knows what we might find out in the course of the day. However, one last thing to show you, just before the end of the sunrise safari, and that's the 2 giraffe. They're going to disappear. Can you see them from your perspective, Jahawi? Hiding. Watching the lions move about. Right, well, just a last-minute species at the conclusion of our sunrise safari. So a big thank you to Jahawi and to the rest of the Safari Live Wild Earth crew. The biggest thank you, of course, as always, goes to you. Join us this afternoon for the sunset safari for more exciting sightings in the African wilderness.